This episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast is brought to you by Bluehost. Try the #1 recommended web hosting provider. With plans starting at just $3.95 a month, you'll get a free domain, free site builder, easy one-click WordPress installs, and 24/7 support. But what's just as impressive as what you get is what you don't get, as there's no contracts, no hidden fees, and no gimmicks. Go check them out at lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/Bluehost. You're listening to the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast, the weekly show sharing proven methods and systems in marketing, equipment, and customer service, educational and motivational, to help make your lawn care business an overwhelming success. Now here's your host, Julio Tomei. Welcome, Lawn Care Nation, to another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I'm your host, Julio Tomei, and this is episode number 118, entitled, What to Do When You Need to Call in Sick. Well, hello, everybody, and thanks again for joining me this week on another episode of the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast. I really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week as usual and downloading those episodes, and for the questions, comments, and feedback that have been coming through to the podcast through the YouTube channel and on Instagram. I really do appreciate all of that feedback. It really helps me to shape the show and let me know the sorts of topics and ideas that you guys like to listen to or would like to listen to on the podcast. Like I say, it just gives me sort of a framework, lets me, sort of plan out future episodes of the podcast and give you guys more of what you like and try to cut out what you don't like. So on this week's episode, or should I say before I get into this week's episode, I'd also like to just remind you guys that, if you'd like to open the show, and by this I mean, have a 30-second audio clip of you saying, you're such and such person from such and such company, and you're listening to the Lawn Care Business Success Podcast, or you can tell people where to follow you on Instagram, or maybe your YouTube channel name or something like that. Just a introduction to the show that is still available for those that want to participate in that. You can head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com, and on the right hand side of that page you will see a gray tab that says leave a voicemail message. So you just click on that, and that lets you record a voicemail message that I can use on the show. Also, last week I mentioned about possibly offering some web page design for those of you that are interested. So if you have a lawn care business, but you don't as of yet have a web page for your business, and if you head on over to my business website at cloverdalemowing.com, that is the website for my actual lawn care business. So Cloverdale Mowing, all one word, .com, and you check that out. If that's something, that type of page, that sort of basic design that I've found has worked really well for me. You'll see it's got a home page, it's got some social media channels or links on there, or feeds, I guess you could call it. It's got a section with a form where people can request a free estimate, and that allows the website to automatically email me their customers' information so I can get back to them. But that sort of overall design there, if that's something that would interest you in having your company, having a website built for your company, and you don't know where to start, maybe you've checked out the tutorial video I did on how to build a WordPress website for your lawn care business. It was a step-by-step tutorial that I did, and I've had some good success with people who have emailed me and messaged me saying that they've built their website with no previous experience ever building a website using my step-by-step video there. It's about an hour-long video. And they were able to, get a basic website up and going for their lawn care business. But still, for some, it may still be out of your comfort zone. Maybe still something that you have absolutely no interest in tackling on your own. That maybe you and technology just don't mix, and you'd just rather have somebody else do it, but you don't know where to turn. So this is something that I mentioned last week that I may be offering over the winter months as well. Coming starting this fall after sort of the lawn care season is done, that I've done a bunch of websites for a whole bunch of my past businesses over the years. It's probably one of the first things I do when I launch a business is get a website going. But like I say, if this is something that would interest you, basically what I'm thinking of doing is, building people a 3 to 4 page sort of website, to start off with. So you'd have like a home page, a contact page, a services page, and then the, free estimate page, and maybe have some of your social media feeds on there as well. Basically, it would be done in WordPress and set up for you so that you would be able to then take over on your own. And so once the website was done, then you would basically get the keys and be able to, have and update that stuff on your own, if you like, right? So basically giving you guys a head start, a leg up on the situation, and you guys would be able to take over from there. So like I said, I'm just thinking about the idea at the moment as a way to monetize the podcast. I don't know if I've mentioned before that one of my goals for the podcast, obviously, would be to start to monetize it so that I could, be able to do things with the podcast, like head over to, say, the GIE Expo, for example. So this year, the GIE Expo is coming up, and unfortunately, I will, at this moment in time, don't have plans to attend. It is, when I was looking into it, it's prohibitively expensive to fly from the west coast of Canada to the GIE. It is, I think I've discussed this with a bunch of people who have asked me if I was going, and, literally I've said, when I was doing my research, I have flown from the west coast of Canada across the country and then across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe for cheaper than what they want just to go from, the west coast of Canada there to Kentucky for GIE, and it just doesn't make sense to me. So unfortunately, I can't at this moment justify that type of cost for 2 or 3 days. So, my plan going forward obviously is to find ways that I can monetize the podcast and be able to put that money towards attending those live events in the future for the podcast. So anyways, that's the plan. So, I thought I've had requests of people asking about website or asking help on their websites. So, I thought, I threw that idea out there, I think towards the beginning of maybe the first year of doing the podcast. I also offered the website building, but I never actually ended up doing any. I had a few requests from people to do it. But, some things happened, with some people, and I just thought, this is turning out to be for what I was, asking, as far as a fee to do the webpage. I think, really what it comes down to is I was probably, advertising it or offering it for way too cheap. And unfortunately, I think it just attracted more just tire kickers. And even at the low price that I was offering at, people were still coming back at me trying to get me to do it for less than what I was asking to do it. And it was like, like, I know the amount of time this takes, and I just lost interest, to be, truth be told, because it was like, it's not worth my time to do this for that price. I think in one case, I even, was thinking with this one person, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll even cut it in half. I'll cut the price in half just to, do this one person's out there, and, I can basically sort of do it as a charitable thing, because they seem to be on hard times or something, and they just kept dragging their feet even after I said, I would do it for half the cost. They would come back with a question or something, and I would answer the question, and then it would be like a month or a month and a half when they would respond. And it was like, you know what, this is just, this isn't working out. So I sort of dropped the whole idea. So I think this time around, if I do offer it, I think I will sort of really sit down and think about what it would cost to, fairly compensate the time that it'll take for me to do it. And, my thinking in that is that, it won't attract so much of the tire kickers, people just sort of messing around and stuff. It'll, only really attract those who are really serious about getting it done. Because, with everything I do, if a customer asks me to mow their lawn or, do some hedges or things like that, it's sort of the same scenario. Once they ask me, I'm, committed to them. I will do what I said I was, would set out to do. I've had comments before from customers with lawn mowing and stuff who would be like, in the rain, I'd be out there mowing their lawns, and they'd be like, I can't believe you're here doing this. Like, that's dedication. Like, our last guy would never show up. He would, if it was raining or if it was too hot, he had every excuse in the book not to show up, and we never knew when the lawn was getting cut. Sometimes it would go weeks and weeks without a cut and stuff, and he says, you're always on time, you're always here, and stuff. So I sort of, everything I do, sort of take it to that sort of level. So if I'm offering a service like the web building or something like that, and people are interested, I'm going in with both feet. I'm committing to that person that I will get it done. And obviously would appreciate only those who are serious to be considering it. So, obviously in this early stages, if you guys are interested, I'm not looking for any firm commitments or anything, just sort of gauging what the response would be, or, if there is an actual need for it, if, this would interest you guys. So if you would have, any sort of interest in this, and like I say, that you don't have to commit to anything, but just sort of let me know. That would be something you would maybe be interested in once I get sort of pricing and things like that handled or ironed out, that you wouldn't mind taking a look at that. And like I say, there's no obligations or anything, but just an idea throwing out there to see if you guys would like, or somebody that has a lawn care business would want a web page for their business and would like me to do that for them. So, you can head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/contact and just fill in the form there and just let me know it'd be something that you possibly would be interested in. So, in this week's episode, I wanted to talk about what to do when you need to call in sick. So, the majority of lawn care businesses, I'm going to say, there's a good portion of them that are single owner operator businesses like me, that it's, just me. There's no employees to rely on. And even if you have employees, these times will come about. And the short answer to this is basically, you can't. For the majority of time, you need to be there all of the time. And this is part of the struggle and part of something that needs to be talked about as well with guys, thinking about leaving, say, a 9-to-5 job, and they're thinking about going into business for themselves. What is the reality of it? And this is a very, a serious portion or serious part of it. There's no guarantee as far as the work, and we all know that. But also when it comes to personal illness, or, you're not feeling well, you get sick, you have an injury, what do you do? Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is that it's Friday afternoon, just before the Tuesday of this release of this episode. So it's actually Friday, September the 15th. And as some of you who follow me on Instagram may have seen from my post this morning, I'm not working today. It's a beautiful sunny day, and I'm stuck at home. And I'm stuck at home because I have gout. So this is a disease, I guess you would call it, or an illness that is the sort of thing that once you get it, I got it maybe, I would say, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, my first sort of flare up of gout. And if for those of you that don't know what gout is, it's basically a form of arthritis. And it's triggered or brought on by certain foods, like red meat, red wine. There's a bunch of different seafood is another one that can trigger it. And basically it's an excessive amount of proteins or something called purines in certain foods that your kidneys have trouble breaking down. And what happens is, normally your kidneys, once your food and all that's digested and all those nutrients are in your bloodstream, your kidneys would filter out these purines, and it would allow you to expel them out of your body when you go and take a pee or you go to the bathroom and urinate. And what happens is that sometimes if you have too much of these purine-rich foods, it taxes your kidneys and they can't effectively filter out these toxins. And so what happens is they pass through and they end up in your bloodstream, and they start to basically collect and build up in certain joints. Now, it can happen in any joint. The most common ones is your large toe, but any joint you can suffer from suffer from gout sort of symptoms from. So basically, these little purines under a microscope, they're these microscopic crystals that are almost like razor-like. That's how they're described when you look up any sort of definition for them. So they're these jagged little crystals that are so extremely painful because they are razor-like, and they start to collect in your joints. And once, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 start to build up, as more pass that area, they get caught up on each other. And they just start to collect in that one spot. To the point where they build up so much that they start to push your joints apart. And it causes so much pain. An intense gout flare-up can be incredibly painful. I wouldn't wish it on, my worst enemies. In fact, the first time that I had a gout flare-up, I literally thought I I had broken my toe or broken my foot. It was so painful. And I couldn't figure out. It was mind, blowing to me because I didn't know what gout was. I'd never heard of it. And literally thought my foot was broken. I woke up in the middle of the night and in such excruciating pain, just having the sheets on the bed on my foot was enough to cause so much discomfort. I was tossing and turning. I couldn't stand the pain. So I went to the hospital and, some internet research by my wife at the same time while we were in the waiting room. She says, I think you got something called gout. And then when the doctors finally checked me out, I told my wife thinks it's something called gout and stuff. And they did some checks and things. And they said, yeah, your wife's a smart lady. You definitely have gout. So unfortunately, after finding out about it, I found that once you get gout, you can never really get rid of it. You can manage symptoms, and there's some medications and things you can take long term for the rest of your life to sort of manage, depending on how bad your gout symptoms are. For me, it's flare-ups that I get unevenly, but I can sort of manage them, like I said, depending on the diet and what I'm eating at the time, and as long as I don't mix certain foods. So like I mentioned, red meat and seafood and alcohol and things like that. So if, for example, I went out and had a steak with a beer, maybe some shrimp or something like that, some surf and turf and an alcoholic drink, that would almost absolutely guarantee that I would have a gout flare up within 24 hours. And I found, for me at least, that by managing my intake and what I'm eating, and if I'm drinking plenty of water to ensure that I'm always clearing out those excessive amounts of purines in my body, that I can sort of manage it. But there's times where I still will get flare-ups. And case in point, I'm home again, like I said, on a Friday because of a gout flare-up. But this time it's in my right knee. This started to bother me on Wednesday, and, I had a mowing schedule to keep. So I went to work on Wednesday, suffered through it. And of course that only aggravates the problem because you should really be resting it and drinking lots of water, and trying to flush out your system. But because, I'm so stuck on my schedule and, rain or shine, sickness and in health, almost sounds like, getting married here. But, because of that dedication to my clients, I go and I work through it. So I come home Wednesday night, and of course it's, it's not so bad as I'm working because you're just working. Your mind is on something else. You can feel the pain, but you're managing it. I'm, taking some, painkillers like some Advil and some Tylenol and things like that, and doing that sort of thing to sort of manage that pain. And working through it. But once I get home, within a half an hour or so of just sitting down and stopping what I'm doing, things start to lock up, and I can feel, the pain in my knee, and even to the touch of my knee, it almost feels like my kneecap is floating, a few centimeters or so above where it's supposed to be, and it feels really hot to the touch, and it's swollen, I just know I'm in for a world of hurt that evening. So I managed through it, take some more painkillers, start drinking a bunch of water, and of course, Thursday hits and I gotta go mow. There is no backup plan. There is no, calling in sick to the boss and having somebody cover for me. I am the boss. I am the employee. I am the backup employee. So, it has to get done. And I know, especially with a gout flare-up, if I skip the mowing today, it's really going to put me behind because I can't just go the next day because I'll probably be down and out for a few days. So this is where I sort of manage. One of the reasons why I do my mowing only on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. Now, I've changed my schedule over the past few years to sort of accommodate different reasons for doing things. And just a few years ago, I switched it again. So I used to do Monday to Thursday mowing, and then Fridays. Traditionally, Fridays I've always left as a non-mowing day. But then I started condensing some routes, getting tighter and tighter compacted routes in areas, and was able to do more houses in less time. So I started to condense them to only 3 days a week, doing my whole route, all the mowing 3 days a week. Now this has allowed, obviously, me to traditionally, over the past 2 years, record podcasts on the Monday, and then, go get some work done after, in the afternoon or so. And then on Fridays, I traditionally will do, other jobs, non-mowing related jobs. So whether it's hedge trimming, or pruning, and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to break for the podcast announcements, and then we'll get back right into it right after this. So stay tuned. Hey guys, if you have any questions or comments about the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/contact. And while you're there, why not join my mailing list and get access to a free PDF document of a landscape maintenance contract you can feel free to copy and use in your own business. For you Instagram users out there, be sure to follow me at Lawn Care Business Success. And if you haven't checked out my videos yet, well, what are you waiting for? Be sure to subscribe to the Lawn Care Business Success YouTube channel. Now, I know you guys love listening to audio while you work as much as I do, so I've partnered up with Audible to offer you guys a free 30-day trial and one free audiobook of your choice. There's no long-term commitments, and you can cancel anytime. And get this, even if you cancel during the trial period, you get to keep your free audiobook. It's a great way to try the service and see if Audible is right for you. So why not give it a try? Head on over to lawncarebusinesssuccess.com/audible. Now back to the show. Okay, so before the break there, I was talking about my mowing schedule and how I manage it and how I've found over the years sort of using that to my benefit. So like I say, I changed my mowing schedule a few years ago to what it currently is, and that is mowing only on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. So, how does that relate to an illness or sickness and stuff? Is that, it's 3 days that I can get all of my mowing done. And all of the other jobs that I do, the hedge trimming, the, whether it's fertilizing or, weeding, any other odd jobs, pressure washing, gutter cleaning, all that sort of stuff. All the things that I've talked about over the course of this podcast through different episodes and stuff. I will schedule those jobs because my routes are so condensed and I'm doing so many mows on each of those days. There's no time for anything else because it would put the whole schedule behind. So if I'm at a house, and because I only work in my neighborhood, it's not a big deal to return back to a house a few days later to do just a hedge trimming or something, because in most cases, most of the houses that I mow are within a 5-minute drive of my home. So it's not a big deal. Over the 12 years, have honed in and condensed my neighborhood so tightly, so compactly, that I'm in a very tiny area of my city. And it has worked out fantastically for me. So like I say, for those extra jobs, I schedule those on the Mondays and Fridays. But I never, and when I say schedule, I schedule them in my mind or in my own diary or on my phone calendar, but I don't actually tell the client. I've never told the client what day I will be there for that particular job if they're asking. The only time a client is promised a day is a mowing schedule. So they're promised a Monday, a Tuesday, or a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday for mowing. That's the only thing that they know and they can expect me on, because, some clients I'll have keys for to get to their backyards and stuff if they lock up their gates. Some don't. Some have pets that they let out all day and, want to know when I'm there so that they can have the pets in and the yard cleaned up of any animal waste and stuff like that. So they're expecting me on that day, which is another reason why I'm so adamant about always being on time on that day, regardless of how I'm feeling. I just work through the pain. And because there's no other choice. Like I said, if I don't, I'm behind. And on top of being behind, I'm also missing out that income. And there's, not another way to replace that. Without mowing a lawn, you're not going to get paid. And if I don't get paid, then I can't pay my bills. So it's one of those things to think about when you're leaving you don't get certain benefits like that. So, not in every job will you be able to benefit from that. I know if you're obviously a part-time employee of some, say, McDonald's or something like that, and you call in sick, well, you're not going to get paid. You may be able to just stay home and they can find somebody to cover that shift for you, but you probably, won't get paid. Now, on other jobs, depending on what you're doing, and if it's a salary or something like that, well, then yes, you probably will not lose out on income if you have to stay home. If you have a union job or something like that, they may have certain sick days that you can have per year that are paid. So these are things that you need to consider as well. Because when you leave that sort of security, and I say that sort of in hyphens because having a regular 9-to-5 job or working for somebody else, there never is security. Because you could lose your job or be downsized, at any moment, at any time, without warning. So having a traditional job, there is no security, but we'll just say the security of that type of job, because most people think that, working for somebody else is more secure than, going, at it your own and being self-employed. But, you don't have that luxury of calling in sick and still being able to collect a paycheck. It all falls on your shoulders. So, like I say, what it allows me to do by having my schedule on those 3 days is that if a illness hits, like a gout flare-up for me, in my example, I know that, I just need to make it through those 3 days. So for this week, when this flare-up hit, it hit on a Wednesday. So, I'm looking at it going, okay, Wednesday, Thursday, I need 2 days. I got to get through these 2 days in pain and agony. But if I get past these 2 days, if I'm not feeling better, if it hasn't passed by Friday, well, I have this list of jobs I got to do, but I haven't promised the customer that I would do that job. And that lets me stay flexible. I can go do one job. I can pair it up with another job. If I go and do, say, one hedge and it takes me longer to do, then I haven't promised another person that I would be there that day. If, say, I have to take the kids to soccer practice or something like that in the evening, I don't have to rearrange anything and call customers and all that sort of stuff. Or if I do a hedge, say, and it's a lot quicker than I was anticipating, I can then look at my schedule of, requested work and fit in another job that I know won't take me that long and squeeze in that job. And because I don't promise the clients what day, I just say whenever a customer wants something done and they request a quote, I give them a price and I just sort of ballpark it. So I'll say in the next few weeks, I'll get it done. And that's all I tell them. So it allows me that flexibility of being able to, move things around and do jobs as I need them. So I had actually 2 jobs lined up for today. A hedge to trim, and it wasn't too bad of a job. This one was a hedge that is actually on the neighbor side, but it's growing over the fence and getting a bit unwieldy. So they just want me to just clean up their side a bit, not trim it over the fence or anything like that, just shave their side of it so that it's nice and even looking. And then I had another client that called me and asked me if I could shape their tree, trim and prune their tree out front. I had done it last year. They really loved it, wondering if I could do it. Now, this person lives a couple doors down from the other person, and they don't know that the other person's already asked me to do a hedge there. So I was like, perfect. In my head, I was like, that's perfect combination. I can do those 2. I don't even have to move the truck. I can park the truck, go trim that hedge for that one customer, walk 2 doors over and shape that tree and another little shrub that they have, a yew shrub in the front, an Irish yew. So I can go and shape that one as well. So that's what I had planned for today. This gout attack, like I said, I did Wednesday and Thursday, and it sort of got to a fever pitch, I guess you could say, in terms of pain. Last night, I was on the couch before bed, and I was in agony. It was just almost unbearable, the pain at times. I thought, almost felt like I was going to pass out from the pain. So, I was thinking, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that stuff tomorrow. Even if the pain eases off, because those 2 jobs are things that I will need a ladder for, I can't go up with my knee up a ladder, with, a gout flare up. There's no way. So this is sort of the only times where I will stay home on a prime day like this. Like, the weather is beautiful outside. It's sunny. It's not too hot. Perfect day to do that sort of job. And I am at home. And it's only in these worst case scenarios. So this morning I woke up and I started tossing and turning again around 5 a.m. in the morning, with pain, as the, painkillers, over-the-counter painkillers that I had taken had worn off, I guess, over the course of the night. So I woke up and I had to take some more, and I couldn't even walk. So I had to fish out the crutches I have in my closet and use those, because I couldn't even put any weight down on my knee. So, I've taken some painkillers and stuff through the course of the day, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to go to work today. I'm just going to, because it's Friday, I made it through those 2 last days of mowing. It's Friday now. I haven't promised anybody anything, so now this gives me Friday, Saturday, Sunday to stay off my feet. I can rest and drink, plenty of water and try to flush out my system and get it done. And part of this is knowing my body and knowing, having this gout for, 7 or 8 years or so, and dealing with these flare-ups on occasion. And there's sometimes I can go a couple weeks between flare-ups. Sometimes it's a couple months. And I think I even had a time there where I went 2 years without a flare-up in between. Then started having some flare-ups again early this year in my knee. So, it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. But it's the way that I've always sort of dealt with it is, the business comes first. I have to keep it going. I can't start disappointing customers because there's so many guys out there. I'm sure you guys all know it. You guys drive out there. You're in your neighborhoods. You're servicing your client lawns. You see all of the lawn care companies out there. And, your clients, there's only so much that they will withstand. you can give them good service. You can give them, your dedication and all that. And that will take you a while. That will, foster that relationship for a long time. But, in the terms of, another lawn care company and all coming along and offering, say, a cheaper price and stuff like that, in most cases, your client will stay with you, even if you're more expensive, because of that dedication, because of those relationships. But if you start to miss the work, particularly when it needs to get done through like heavy growth seasons, and now you're not meeting the needs of the client, even if it's an illness that you're going through, you can't blame the client. They, as much as that relationship is fostered and, you may seem, on really good terms with somebody, they still need to have their lawn mowed. And maybe they have their own issues where they can't get out there and mow it themselves, or they're too busy and stuff. Why did they hire you in the first place? It's because they couldn't do it themselves for whatever reason, whether it's time or their own illness or health problems or whatever. So you can't expect them to, be loyal to you if you're constantly missing work and putting their lawn as a lawn or a low priority. And that's why I always put them first, and I always just work through the pain. Those days when I got tons and tons of pain from the gout and stuff like that, it takes me so much longer to mow lawns. Every lawn is just like so painful, every step that you're taking. And I'll admit that there's times where I'll cut corners on those days because it's just so painful. And an example of cutting corners would say, maybe that sidewalk doesn't quite need edging today because I've trimmed all the way around it once, and it's not so bad. It's not overgrown or anything like that. So where normally I would automatically just edge every surface or something, if I'm having a really bad time in pain or something like that, those are times where I might skip that one sidewalk and do all the other ones on their house because they're visibly needing edging. Like this happened yesterday. There was a house where I did every side of every sidewalk except for one because it didn't need it. And I was like, I could, but that's going to save me probably about 50 steps. And everything that I can save when I'm in this much pain, is a benefit. So there's, times where I work through it and sort of make little concessions here and there. As long as it's not something that the customer's going to go, oh, you missed that, right? Them looking at it, they would never notice. I noticed because I know that I didn't do that one edge. But I did do all the edges that needed doing. So, I'll look for little concessions like that just to sort of save me the pain and stuff, if I can. Because I know that I can get back to it next week and do it and it won't even miss a beat. So, you try little things like that, but I work through the pain. I remember the first time actually, I also have or suffer from high blood pressure, and it's something that's hereditary in my family. A lot of people have high blood pressure, brother and sister. My mom has had it, for years and years and years, I think since she was in her 40s. So, it's something that I have to deal with where I got to take a medication and stuff. But before I found out I had high blood pressure, I started feeling really bad as well, and things were off, and I didn't know what it was, but I remember going to work and day after day it seemed to be getting worse and worse, to the point that I remember this one day in particular where I was so off feeling, but I was like, I have to keep the schedule, that I would go and mow a lawn, and every time I would get to a customer property, I would do the like Google sort of, or Apple Maps, where you can send your location to somebody, and I would send my location to my wife, so that she knew where I was last in case something happens, because I started suffering like vertigo that day. I would be driving, and I remember a couple times where things started spinning, and I was like, holy smokes, I gotta pull over. And I would pull over, and things were just like spinning around, and I thought, man, I really shouldn't be driving. And I remember sending her my location and just sort of keeping track of it. And then I would just sit there for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then it would pass. And then I would, start driving again, and get to the next house and get it done. But my point of it all is not that you should risk your safety and things like that, obviously. But, for me, it was like, I get my mowing done, and then I can, call the doctor and schedule Friday to go see him, or Monday to go see him, and get this sorted out. So that's just what has worked for me, is having sort of that flexibility in my schedule, keeping those sort of flex days sorted out and part of my schedule, so that I can use those to my advantage while still trying to, keep my customers happy. And, a week is 7 days, and I only have commitment to my clients for 3 of those days. So that gives me 4 days a week where I'm not committed to anybody for anything during the mowing season. So those are better. When I look at it, I go, those are better odds for me, right? In case something happens, is I got 4 days. I don't need to be anywhere, that anybody's relying on me, but I've got these 3 days that people are. And, worst comes to worst, if, something happens as far as, if you get a fever or something like that, we all have those days where you get a stomach flu or something like that. And that's where those flex days for me, can work as well. Because, if I'm, struck with a flu, say on a Wednesday, and, you get a really bad stomach flu or something like that, and there's no way you can go out and mow lawns and things like that. I know that, it's usually a 24-hour thing. I can skip those lawns if I had to today. Can either email those clients and let them know that I'm not feeling well, but I'll be there tomorrow, for instance. And then I can push those 2 days of mowing back 2 days, and it doesn't really affect the schedule that week because that Friday is that flex day. So the Wednesday cuts I would do on the Thursday cuts I would do on a Friday, and, I'd be back on track, and would have that one day. But it's something to keep mindful of, that, if you're thinking about starting your own business, you're thinking about, a lawn care business or any sort of, business where you're self-employed, is that part of it. If you're going to be the single owner operator, all of that weight is on your shoulders, and you have to be mindful of that. That, you have a short window of opportunity when it comes to lawn care. We have seasons, right? So we all, for me, the season is usually mid-March till end of October for lawn cutting. And then there's other smaller jobs and things you can do, but that is the season. And you have in the middle, the months of summer where you have basically drought. So you have, 4 months at the beginning of each season where you got some steady lawn cutting. Then you have 2 months in the middle where everything dries up and you aren't cutting nearly as often. And then you get back into September, and depending on the lawns, some of them may be back to weekly. If they haven't watered and we haven't gotten a significant amount of rain, that drought sort of period may extend. So you have these windows of opportunity where you have to make your full year's income. And so when things pop up that obviously are not convenient, like me today with a gout flare up, and having to use crutches to get around, obviously I can't go to work. I can't climb a ladder. I can't go do hedges. I probably couldn't mow a lawn today because I can't even walk without crutches, like I say. But I know from my history that it'll be, 3 days to a week max of, the full symptoms from beginning to end. But it's usually about 2-3 days of the maximum sort of pain sort of threshold. So I know that, I've made it to Friday. Hopefully I can ride it out and rest for the weekend here and be back at it, at least manageable enough where the pain is sort of on its downward way out to getting better by the Monday, that I can get back to work and get things started and do tackle that list of jobs where, I go do that tree shaping and that hedge and stuff on Monday instead, because I didn't promise them what day I was going to do it. So, as far as they're concerned, they've told me, I've told them I would do it, and, they're not upset because they're not waiting around for me. They just know that I'll take care of it when I can. So, just something I want to talk about, something I want to touch as, this came up today. And, I'm stuck at home on this beautiful day. Hopefully you guys are all out there making, a good living, and things are happening for you in your lawn care business. But there's, always things, if you're thinking about taking that leap, things that you need to think about, and having a plan. With me, with that sort of schedule and how I run my schedule is just one of the, I think, best ways I've found, being a single owner operator, on how I can handle it, because it gives me that flexibility, and obviously not promising people when I will do jobs. That flexibility is fantastic, because as people ask me for things during times, even if I'm not unhealthy or not suffering from any sort of illnesses. If somebody asks me to do a pressure washing or something like that, if I'm not promising them, and I just tell them, I'll put it on the list and I'll get to it when I can, it gives me that flexibility that, if they're asking me for that during, say, a stretch where lawns are going crazy and I'm just mowing and mowing and mowing and mowing, and I don't have time to do that sort of thing at the moment, well, if they're fine with me just putting it on my list, then that gives me that opportunity to maybe wait a month and get through the mowing heavy growth season, and maybe sort of the beginning of June, when things are starting to slow down a little bit. And then I can squeeze that in there and fill in a day where otherwise I may not have a full day of mowing or something. So by using that sort of thing where I don't promise people what day I'm coming to do those extra jobs, and only promise them on sort of the scheduled mowing day, and keeping the flex days on the beginning. The other thing that's really nice about having the Monday, Friday is that, when I started this business, I didn't do that. Long weekends were always a bit of a pain, because the wife and stuff and kids, we'd all want to go out and go camping or something like that. And then I'd have to rearrange the schedule for everybody, and, make sure they all knew that our mowing was one day later this week. And then you'd get maybe an Easter weekend where you'd have the Good Friday and Easter Monday, and that would put 2 days and would really mess things up. Whereby not, having that Monday, Friday as scheduled work, it doesn't affect me anymore. A long weekend doesn't affect me anymore. I don't have to call customers or contact them and let them know that I won't be there this week, or that it's going to be a day later. Long weekends are not a big deal. I can just go away for a long weekend and come back, and nobody even knows that I had the day off. Because again, I'm not promising people that I'll be there on Mondays or Fridays for other jobs, and the mowing never gets interrupted on the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I think that's it for this week. Here's to wishing you guys all overwhelming success and freedom in your lawn care business. Bye for now.